My daughter ignored me for 10 years, then showed up and demanded, "Give me the keys to your mansion, Dad. We need them." I quietly nodded and let her move in. She imagined a luxurious life in my home. But when she discovered my hidden surprise inside, she panicked and fell to her knees, realizing her betrayal wouldn't go unpunished. The consequences would be harsh. Before continuing, subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is in your region right now. The morning fog was lifting off the bay when my doorbell rang. March 15th, a Tuesday. I'd been sketching at my drafting table, enjoying retirement's quiet rhythm. At 68, my social calendar consists mainly of grocery deliveries and the occasional accountant visit. Then the intercom crackled. "Dad, it's Helena. Can we come up?" 10 years of silence, and now this. My finger hovered before I pressed the button, releasing the lock. My heart did something complicated. Hope, dread, confusion all at once. I opened the door. There stood my daughter, Helena, 38 now, her mother's eyes but none of her warmth. Beside her was James, her husband, all gym muscles and impatience. I'd attended their wedding 11 years ago, stood in the corner while Helena introduced me as my father. He's retired. Not the architect, just retired. "Dad," Helena said, rehearsed. She hugged me briefly, funeral relative style. "It's been too long." 10 years, I said quietly. James extended his hand. "Franklin, good to see you." His grip was aggressive, establishing dominance. I let him have it. "At my age, you pick your battles." They came inside, and I watched their eyes sweep the space. The Pacific Heights mansion, my masterpiece, designed 30 years ago with Margaret. 4,000 square feet of Victorian elegance, crown moldings specified to the millimeter, bay windows framing the Golden Gate like art. But they weren't seeing craftsmanship. They were seeing dollar signs. James's gaze lingered on the coffered ceiling. Helena's fingers traced the walnut banister, appraising, calculating. "The place looks good," James said, accusatory. "Big, though, for one person. I manage." We sat in the living room where Helena had opened Christmas presents, where Margaret and I had hosted parties, where I'd sat alone for a decade. Helena perched on the leather sofa, posture perfect, smile plastic. "Dad, I know it's been a while." 10 years, I repeated. "Facts matter in architecture. They should matter in families." She blinked. "Yes, I'm sorry. Life got complicated." "Complicated?" I thought about letters returned unopened, calls to voicemail, the heart attack 2 years ago, lying in the hospital bed, watching the door. But I didn't say that. Not yet. James leaned forward, subtle abandon. "Look, Franklin, we need to talk about this house. Not, we've missed you. Not, let's rebuild. Just the house." "What about it?" Helena's eyes suddenly brimmed with tears, remarkably realistic. "Dad, I know this sounds terrible, but we're in trouble. Financial trouble. James's business didn't work out. We've been struggling and—" Her voice caught. I thought about Mom, how she'd want us to be family again. Invoking Margaret, strategic. My wife dead 10 years, now summoned as a character witness. Mom would want many things, I said quietly. James stood, pacing. "The point is, you don't need this size. It's wasted resources, family resources. You're alone, rattling around 6 bedrooms, while we can barely keep our apartment. You want me to sell." "We want you to be practical," James said. "This property's worth $3 million, more. Money sitting here doing nothing. Money that could help your daughter." Helena took my hand, cold fingers. "Dad, I wouldn't ask if we weren't desperate. We need you to transfer the house to us. We'll handle the sale. You can find a nice condo, something manageable. We'll take care of you." The audacity hit like a physical blow. They'd walked in after a decade and within 15 minutes demanded my home. The home I'd designed. Where Margaret died. My last connection to the life we'd built. I should have thrown them out. But something cold settled in my chest instead, pushing aside hurt and hope. I looked at Helena, really looked, those calculated tears, that concern that didn't reach her eyes. Behind her, photographs on the mantel. Margaret and me at our wedding, Helena as a baby. All 3 of us before this house the day construction finished. That Helena was gone, maybe never existed. "I need to think about it." James's jaw tightened. "What's to think about?" You're not using this space. We need help. You're her father. I said I need to think. My voice stayed quiet, but something made James stop. Helena squeezed my hand. Of course, Dad. Take time. It's just, we're desperate. Creditors calling daily. We might lose everything. Everything except your pride, I said. Her hand went rigid. That's holding up fine. She pulled away, wounded, or performing wounded. That's not fair. Isn't it? I stood, suddenly tired. I'll think about it. Call tomorrow. They exchanged glances. Frustration, annoyance, certainty. They thought they had me. The lonely old man would cave for a scrap of his daughter's attention. Walking them to the door, James clapped my shoulder. You're doing the right thing, Franklin. Family takes care of family, right? Right! I watched from the window as they got into their Tesla, a car they couldn't afford, and pulled away. Helena was on her phone before reaching the corner, already spending my money, probably. I stood there long after they left, fog rolling back in, obscuring the view. The house felt quiet. 10 years of quiet, but this was different. This was the quiet before something breaks, or before someone breaks something. I walked to my study, pulled out a manila folder from my desk. Inside, copies of letters I'd sent Helena over the years. Birthday cards, Christmas cards, the one from the hospital, written with shaking hands. I had a heart attack. I'm okay now. I miss you. She'd never responded. I set the folder aside and picked up my phone. William Clark, a real estate attorney I'd worked with on commercial projects years ago. Good man. Methodical. Creative when needed. 3 rings. William, it's Franklin Preston. I need to discuss something. Have time this week? For you? Of course. What's this about? I looked around my house, at the walls I'd designed, the life I'd built with Margaret, everything Helena wanted to take. Protecting an asset, I said. A very valuable asset. After they left, I poured 2 fingers of whiskey, Macallan 18, the bottle Margaret and I opened on our 40th anniversary, 5 months before the diagnosis. I'd been rationing it since, because finishing it meant accepting she was really gone. I sat by the window, watching city lights emerge at dusk, and let myself remember. 10 years ago, almost to the day. Margaret's funeral, beautiful the way terrible things sometimes are. Spring flowers everywhere, everyone saying right words. Helena had been there, properly dressed, properly tearful, holding my arm, playing devoted daughter flawlessly. But I felt the distance, the coldness underneath. A week later, she came to the house. I'd been grateful, thinking we could grieve together. I'd made coffee, set out pastries Margaret loved from the Fillmore bakery. Helena sat on that same sofa. Dad, we need to talk about the estate. I'd blinked, confused. Estate? Margaret didn't leave a will. We owned everything jointly. It's all mine now. That's the problem? Helena's voice was efficient, brutal. The house was too big for one person. Maintenance costs astronomical. I should sell, liquidate, split proceeds. Mom would want me taken care of. I'd explained this house was more than real estate. It was Margaret's dream made concrete. We'd designed it together, chose every tile, every fixture. The kitchen matched her specifications. The garden had her roses. Selling would be losing her again. Helena's face went hard. So you're choosing a building over your daughter? I'm choosing your mother's memory. Then I guess you've made your priorities clear. She gathered her bag. At the door, she turned back. Fine. Keep your precious house. Keep your memories. But don't expect me to watch you wallow. I need a father who cares about my future, not someone drowning in the past. Helena, please! Don't call. Don't write. When you're ready to grow up and do the right thing, you know where to find me. The door closed. Last time I'd seen her until today. I tried, though. Letters monthly at first. Telling about my days. Asking about hers. Reaching into void. They came back unopened or disappeared into silence. I called on her birthday. Left messages. Nothing. The heart attack. Widowmaker. Doctors called it. Stopped my heart in the grocery store. I woke in ICU with tubes everywhere. Strangers hovering. I asked the nurse to call Helena. She tried. Got voicemail. Helena never came. 3 days in that hospital. My only visitor was William Clark, who came because he'd heard from a colleague. He sat with me an hour, talking about nothing. I was pathetically grateful. The nurses looked at me with pity. Old man with no family. They'd seen hundreds like me. After I got home, I sent Helena a letter. Short. I had a heart attack. I'm okay now. I miss you. I'd stared at those words an hour before mailing, wondering if they sounded like manipulation. They were just true. She never responded. And birthdays. Mine, not hers. 66, 67, 68 last month. I'd developed a tradition, making myself a boxed cake, eating one slice, throwing out the rest. Margaret used to make elaborate productions. Helena helped decorate. Now I celebrated alone. The whiskey burned. Anger built, hot and sharp, cutting through sadness. I could forgive silence, forgive abandonment. People grieve differently, run from pain. But this, coming back after 10 years not to apologize, not to rebuild, but to demand, treating me like an ATM, an obstacle between them and money, the calculated tears, invoking Margaret's memory as a weapon. Mom would want us family again, as if Margaret would recognize this mercenary stranger as her daughter. And James, barely concealed contempt calling me Franklin, not Mr. Preston or Dad, assessing my home like shopping for furniture, presuming I was too old, too weak, too grateful for attention to refuse. They thought I was desperate, lonely enough to trade dignity for companionship, my home for conditional affection. Wrong. I opened my laptop, started doing what I do best. Planning. Architecture is seeing the finished structure before the first brick. Understanding how pieces fit together, building something beautiful with underlying framework of steel and stone. I could build something here too. Not a building, a strategy. My phone buzzed. Helena, on schedule. Text. Thanks for hearing us out today, Dad. I know this is hard, but it means a lot. We'll talk tomorrow. Love you. Love you. 2 words unsaid for a decade, deployed now as tactical weapon. I didn't respond. Instead, I researched California real estate law, charitable foundations, historical preservation statutes, made notes, drew diagrams, did what I'd always done facing complex problems, broke them into solvable components. By midnight, I had an outline. It would take time, money, precision and patience and cold calculation I'd never applied except to blueprints, but it could work. I looked at the photo on my desk, Margaret and me before this house 30 years ago, her head on my shoulder, both smiling at a future we thought we understood. She'd loved this place. Every room held her fingerprints, choices, laughter. I'm sorry, I told her image. Sorry I couldn't give Helena the mother she needed, but I won't let her take you away again. My phone buzzed again, another text. Just thinking how good it'll be to reconnect. Maybe dinner this week, my treat. Her treat. With what money? The failed business? Maxed credit cards? Or was she already counting my money as hers? I set the phone down, returned to my laptop. Work to do. They wanted my house, my legacy, to erase Margaret's memory for cash. They would get exactly what they deserved, and not one thing more. The next morning, the doorbell rang. A delivery, books I'd ordered. Carlos Mendoza, the courier who'd served this neighborhood for years, stood there with his usual smile. Morning, Mr. Preston. Got your books. Thanks, Carlos. I signed for the package. He lingered the way he always did. You doing okay? Haven't seen you around much. Fine, just busy. I started to close the door, but Carlos wasn't finished. Oh, by the way, I saw your daughter here a few weeks back. 3 weeks ago, maybe. She was with a man and woman, meeting with someone who looked like a realtor. They were taking pictures of your house, walking around the property. I thought maybe you were selling. Everything stopped. 3 weeks ago? Yeah, I remember because I delivered to the Johnsons next door that day. Your daughter and her group were out front with clipboards and cameras, professional looking. I figured you'd finally decided to downsize. No, I said slowly. No plans to sell. Carlos looked confused. Huh. Well, they sure look serious. Anyway, enjoy your books. I closed the door and stood in the hallway. 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks before yesterday's tearful reunion. Before Helena's desperate plea. Before their sudden appearance. They'd been planning this. Scouting the property. Bringing in a realtor. Taking photographs. This wasn't spontaneous. This was calculated. I'd been the target all along. The financial trouble was probably true, but their solution had been in the works for weeks. The tears, invoking her mother's memory, pretending to reconnect. All theater. rehearsed lines, prepared assault, and I'd almost fallen for it. I walked to my study and dialed William Clark. "Franklin, I was hoping you'd call. I need to move faster than I thought. Can you meet today?" 1 o'clock at my office. I'll be there. I hung up and called a private investigation firm. No personal connections, just professional service. I needed a background check on James Harris. Financial records, business dealings, anything public and legal. How soon? As soon as possible. Money's not an issue. Give me a week, maybe less. I spent the morning planning, not building designs, strategies, flowcharts, legal structures, mapping every possibility, every angle, every potential obstacle. At 1 o'clock, I sat across from William in his downtown office, the Bay Bridge visible through the window. "Tell me what's really going on," he said. I told him everything. Helena's visit, the demands, 10 years of silence, Carlos's revelation. William listened without interrupting. "You want to protect the house," he finally said. "I want to make it impossible for them to take it." "There are ways. California law gives us interesting options." He pulled out a legal pad. "Historic designation, for one. Your house was designed by you and Richard Chen, right? He was well known in the 70s. He passed away 5 years ago." "Perfect. That gives us grounds for historic preservation. Once in place, modifications require city commission approval. Makes the property harder to flip." He tapped his pen. "But that's just the first layer. We need to think bigger." "I'm listening. What if the house wasn't yours to give away? What if it belonged to an entity you controlled but they couldn't touch? A trust? More complex? A charitable foundation. You create it, transfer the property, maintain lifetime residence rights. The foundation has a mission, supporting young architects, given your background. You appoint a board of directors you trust." I sat forward. "And if Helena demands I transfer the house?" "You can't. You don't own it. The foundation does, and the charter prevents sale without unanimous board approval." "Which they'd never get." "Exactly." William smiled. "But we move fast. How long before they push for transfer?" "She calls daily, a week, maybe 2. Then we file everything within 5 days. Historic designation, foundation creation, property transfer. It'll cost you 40 to 50,000 in legal fees, filing costs, administration." I thought about my retirement account. 45,000 would make a dent. But what was money compared to preserving what Margaret and I had built? "Do it." William nodded and started writing. "I'll need signatures on about 30 documents. We'll meet with a notary, file with the city, register the foundation. My paralegal starts today." "Thank you, William." He looked up, serious. "Franklin, I have to ask, is this about the house or your daughter?" I considered. "Both. The house is the last piece of my life with Margaret. But Helena needs to understand actions have consequences, that you can't abandon someone for a decade and expect them to hand over their life when it's convenient." "Fair enough. Just remember, once we do this, there's no easy way back." "The bridge was burned 10 years ago," I said. "I'm just now accepting it." Leaving William's office, my phone buzzed. "Helena." "Hi, Dad. Just checking in. Have you thought more about our conversation? We're really excited to start fresh. Can we talk this weekend?" I stared at the message. Start fresh. As if a decade could be erased with convenient words. I didn't respond. Instead, I drove home, my mind already moving to the next phase. They wanted my house. They thought I was desperate enough for their attention to give them anything. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The investigation report arrived 6 days later in a manila envelope. I read it twice, my coffee going cold. James Harris, 42, owner of Harris Ventures LLC, filed for bankruptcy 4 months ago. Personal debts totaling over $180,000, mostly gambling losses, casino records, credit card statements, loan applications, all declined. Helena and James had applied for refinancing 3 times in the past year. All rejected. Their Tesla was leased, 2 months behind. Their apartment had an eviction notice filed 30 days ago. They weren't just in trouble. They were drowning, and my house was their life raft. I set the report aside and looked at the garden Margaret had planted. Her roses still bloomed, maintained by the landscaping service I'd kept all these years. I thought about Helena's wedding 11 years ago. I'd paid for half. $25,000 Margaret and I had saved. Helena had been distant even then, introducing me as my father, he's retired, while James worked the room. She'd been embarrassed by me. The successful architect wasn't successful enough for her new life. When Margaret got sick, Helena visited exactly twice. Both times she spent most of the visit on her phone, stepping out for important calls. At the funeral, she cried beautifully, but a week later, demanding I sell the house, those tears had dried fast. Mom would want me taken care of, she'd said. What Margaret would have wanted was for her daughter to have a soul. My phone rang. Helena again. I'd been dodging her calls all week, sending brief texts. Still thinking. Need time. But she was getting impatient. I answered, Dad, finally. I was getting worried. I'm fine, Helena. Just busy. Busy with what? I thought you were retired. An edge had crept into her voice. The performance was slipping. Retirement doesn't mean sitting still. Right. Listen, we need to finalize things. James and I found a nice one-bedroom for you in the Sunset District. Only $3,000 a month. We could help you move this weekend. This weekend? Well, yes. The sooner we get the house transfer done, the sooner we all move forward. You said you'd think about it. It's been a week. I said I needed time, Helena. This is a big decision. Her voice sharpened. It's really not that big, Dad. You're one person in a 6-bedroom house. It's ridiculous. And we're desperate. Don't you care about your daughter? The manipulation, right on schedule. I care very much, I said, which is why I want to be careful. Careful? What's there to be careful about? We're family. You help us, we help you. That's how it works. Is it? Where was the family when I was in the hospital? Silence. Then, that's not fair. We didn't know. I sent you a letter from the hospital. You never responded. She fumbled. Things were complicated. James's business. Of course. Things are always complicated when you need them to be. My voice was ice. Aren't they? Don't start with this. We're here now, trying to reconnect. You're here because you need money. Carlos the courier saw you 3 weeks ago, Helena. You and James and some woman, meeting with a realtor, photographing my house, planning this before you ever knocked on my door. The silence stretched. When she spoke, all pretense was gone. So what if we did? So what if we planned ahead? That doesn't change the fact that you're wasting a valuable asset while your family suffers. You're being selfish. I almost laughed. Selfish? Interesting, coming from you. I don't have time for guilt trips. Are you going to help us or not? Actually, I've been working on that. I've been very busy this week, making arrangements. Her tone shifted, eager. You mean you'll transfer the house? Come by on Saturday, I said. Noon. We'll discuss the details. Really? Dad, Thank you. You won't regret this. No, I said quietly. I don't think I will. I hung up before she could respond. That evening, I met William at his office. He handed me a thick folder of documents. It's done, he said. The Margaret Preston Memorial Foundation is officially registered. Property transfer complete. The house belongs to the foundation, with you retaining lifetime residence. Historic designation filed and pending approval. Given our documentation, it's virtually certain. And the other arrangements? 3 young architects signed 5-year lease agreements for creative studio space. Rent is $100 monthly, below market, but the contracts are ironclad. They can't be terminated without cause, and the foundation can't sell while active leases exist. I nodded, feeling the weight. And if Helena challenges this? She can try. But every document is legal, properly filed, witnessed. The foundation has legitimate charitable purpose. The leases are standard. Historic designation is based on actual architectural significance. No fraud, no impropriety. Just very careful estate planning. How much total? William consulted his notes. $44,873. Legal fees, filing costs, historic preservation application, foundation registration, lease preparations. Almost $45,000. A significant sum. But I'd spent more on Helena's wedding, and look how that investment paid off. Worth every penny, I said. Saturday approached. I prepared the house carefully. The 3 young architects, all brilliant, all struggling, would move into their studios next month. For now, the rooms sat empty but legally claimed. I thought about Margaret, how she'd always supported young talent, always believed in giving people chances. She would have loved this foundation. Helena had learned nothing from her mother. She'd learned to take, to demand, to expect the world to bend to her desires. Saturday would be educational. I made coffee and waited. 11:55. They'd be here soon. James, Helena, probably Dorothy with her legal expertise, coming to collect what they thought was theirs. The doorbell rang at exactly noon. I opened the door and smiled. "Right on time," I said. "Please come in. We have a lot to discuss." They came back on Tuesday, and this time they brought reinforcements. Helena and James arrived at 11 in the morning, but they weren't alone. A woman's voice crackled through my phone speaker before they even rang the doorbell. "Mr. Preston, this is Dorothy Harris, James's sister. I'm on the line to help facilitate today's discussion." I let them in. Dorothy's disembodied voice filled my living room as James set his phone on the coffee table. Speaker mode activated. She had that practiced tone, smooth, professional, faintly condescending, the voice of someone who'd worked in legal offices long enough to think they understood the law. "I want to help make this transition as smooth as possible for everyone," Dorothy said. "I've worked as a legal assistant for 12 years, so I can guide you through the documentation process at no cost. Consider it a family favor." "How generous," I said. Helena shot me a warning look. "Dad, Dorothy's trying to help. We all are." James leaned back on my sofa, Margaret's sofa, like he already owned it. "Look, Franklin, let's cut to the chase. You've had 2 weeks to think. We need an answer. Are you going to do the right thing here, or are we going to have a problem?" "The right thing," I repeated. Interesting phrase. "Don't start with the guilt trip," Helena said, her voice sharp. "We're in crisis mode here. Our apartment's being foreclosed on. James's business collapsed. We need help, and you're sitting here in 6,000 square feet, like some kind of—" She caught herself, softened her tone. "Look, we're not asking you to give us the house. We're asking you to be practical. Downsize. Let us handle the property. Everyone wins." "Everyone," I said quietly. James stood up, started pacing. The aggression was building, the pretense crumbling. "Listen, old man, you're rotting in this place alone. It's pathetic. We could turn this into something, a real family home. The grandkids could visit, run around in the backyard." "Grandkids?" I looked at Helena. "The ones I've never met? Do they even know I exist?" Helena's face flushed. "That's not— Dad, you're making this harder than it needs to be." "Am I?" I stood up, walked to the window. "Let me ask you something, Helena. When exactly did you plan this little intervention? Was it before or after you had a realtor photograph my house 3 weeks ago?" The silence was beautiful. Dorothy's voice cut through it, sharp now. "Mr. Preston, I don't know what you think you know, but I know my daughter hasn't spoken to me in 10 years. I know she didn't come when I was in the hospital. I know she's here now because she needs money, not because she missed me." I turned to face them. "And I know she's been planning this for weeks, if not months. So let's stop pretending this is about family." James's jaw clenched. "You self-righteous—" "Careful," I said softly. "You're in my house." Helena stood up, tears in her eyes. Real or performed, I couldn't tell anymore. "Fine. You want the truth? Yes, we're desperate. Yes, we planned ahead. Yes, we need this house. But that doesn't change the fact that you're our family, and family helps each other. Mom would have wanted—" "Don't." My voice was ice. "Don't you dare tell me what your mother would have wanted. You weren't there when she died. You weren't there when she needed you. Don't use her memory as a weapon now." The tears dried up fast. Helena's expression hardened. "So that's a no, then? You're going to let your own daughter become homeless out of spite?" I looked at her for a long moment, at this stranger wearing my daughter's face, speaking my daughter's words, but containing none of the person I'd raised. "No," I said finally. "I'm going to give you exactly 1 week." James perked up. "To transfer the house? To find somewhere else to live? Because in 1 week I'm signing the deed over, and after that, this situation becomes significantly more complicated." Helena's eyes lit up with triumph. "Dad, thank you. You won't regret this." "I already do," I said. "But a week gives you time to pack your things, find a rental, get your affairs in order." Dorothy's voice came through the speaker, cautious now. "Mr. Preston, we should discuss the transfer documents. I can prepare everything. Make sure it's all legal and binding. I have my own attorney, I said. William Clark. He'll handle the paperwork. But I can save you the expense. I said no, Dorothy. Thank you for the offer. They left 20 minutes later, practically floating. I watched from the window as they climbed into their Tesla, already celebrating. Helena on her phone immediately, probably calling friends, telling them about her new mansion. I waited until they turned the corner, then I picked up my phone and dialed William. It's time, I said. They took the bait. We have 1 week. I'll make the calls, William replied. Historic preservation? Call Cheryl Anderson at the commission. She's expecting to hear from you. And the foundation? Frederick Johnson's ready with the notary documents. We file tomorrow. Franklin, William said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. You're sure about this? I thought about Helena's face when she'd invoked Margaret, the calculated tears, the mercenary glint in her eyes when I'd said I'd sign over the deed. I've never been more sure of anything, I said. I hung up and walked through my house, my beautiful house, every corner filled with Margaret's touch, her choices, her love. In 1 week it would belong to a foundation, to a purpose, to something that mattered. Helena wanted the house? She'd get it, just not the way she expected. The next 7 days moved with surgical precision. Day 1. William filed the Historic Preservation application with Cheryl Anderson at the San Francisco Historic Preservation Commission. The house qualified. I'd designed it with Richard Chen in the 70s, and Richard's work was well documented. Cheryl fast-tracked the review. Day 2. Frederick Johnson, the notary, witnessed my signature on the foundation documents. The Margaret Preston Memorial Foundation officially came into existence. Its mission, supporting emerging architects through grants, mentorship, and housing assistance. Its primary asset, my house. Day 3. I met with 3 young architects, talented people struggling in San Francisco's brutal market. I offered each a creative studio space in my home, 5-year leases at $100 monthly. They nearly cried with gratitude. They signed that afternoon. Days 4 and 5. The paperwork circulated. Historic preservation approval came through, pending final commission vote. But Cheryl assured me it was a formality. The foundation was registered. Property transfer documents were notarized, witnessed, filed, lease agreements recorded. Day 6. I moved my personal belongings to a single room. The young architects would move in next month, but I wanted everything ready. I kept Margaret's photo on my desk. Everything else went into storage. Day 7. Saturday. Moving day. I stood on the front porch at noon with a small box, some clothes, a few books, my laptop, the essentials. Helena's moving truck arrived at 12:03. She and James emerged, followed by Dorothy, no longer just a voice but a solid woman in her mid-40s with sharp eyes and a leather folder. Dad! Helena rushed up, actually hugged me. I can't believe we're really doing this. Thank you so much. You're welcome, I said. I meant it too. James was already eyeing the house like a buyer at an auction. This place is going to look amazing after renovations. Maybe knock down that wall. You might want to check the paperwork first, I said mildly. Dorothy was ahead of them. She'd opened the envelope, was scanning the first page. Her face went from confident to confused, to pale in about 10 seconds. This isn't... She looked up. Mr. Preston, this is a lease agreement. Yes, a lease, not a deed transfer. A rental lease for 12 months at $4,500 per month. James snatched the papers. What? That's not what we agreed to. I said I'd sign over the house. I did. To the Margaret Preston Memorial Foundation, which now owns this property. The foundation board agreed to rent it to you at below market rates. Helena's face went white. What are you talking about? This is insane. You can't... I can. I did. I gestured to the documents. It's all legal. The foundation owns the house. I have lifetime residence rights. You have a 1-year lease. William Clark drafted everything. Dorothy was flipping through pages, her composure cracking. The property has historic designation pending. There are existing lease agreements. 3 creative studios. This makes the house a commercial property, with sitting tenants. Yes, 3 young architects. Very talented. They move in next month. You'll share common spaces with them. Kitchen, living room. The lease specifies equal access. James's face turned red. You're trying to screw us. We'll sue. We'll take you to court. And what? Everything's legal. Everything's documented. The foundation is registered. Historic designation approved. Tenant leases are valid contracts. William made very sure. I picked up my box. Keys are on the kitchen counter. First month's rent is due on the 15th. Account information is in your lease packet. Helena grabbed my arm. Dad, wait. We can't afford $4,500 a month. We're broke. That's why we came to you. Then I suggest you find somewhere cheaper, or accept the lease terms and figure it out. Your choice. This is blackmail. No, I said quietly. This is consequences. Dorothy had her phone out, dialing. I'm calling a lawyer. This can't be legal. Call William Clark, I suggested. He'll explain California property law. His number's in the packet. James stepped forward, and for a moment I thought he might try to intimidate me, but something in my expression stopped him. Maybe he finally understood I wasn't the weak old man he'd assumed. You planned this, he said. From the beginning, you were already setting this trap. Actually, no. When you first came, I was considering it. When Carlos told me you'd been scouting my house 3 weeks earlier, that's when I decided. I smiled. You taught me something valuable, James. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. I walked down the steps toward my car. Helena called after me. Where are you going? You can't just leave us here. I'm staying with a friend while I look for a condo. You have the house, just like you wanted. Enjoy it. Behind me, Dorothy was on the phone with some attorney, her voice rising. James was cursing. Helena was crying. Real tears this time. Tears of frustration, rage, disbelief. I got in my car and drove away from the house I'd designed, the house I'd built, the house where I'd loved and lost and lived for 30 years. I didn't look back. 3 months passed. 3 months of watching them drown. I didn't live in the house anymore. I'd moved to a comfortable condo in Nob Hill, but I heard reports. From William, from the young architects, from the foundation's property manager. Helena and James were hemorrhaging money. The rent alone was $4,500 monthly. Then came utilities. The house was beautiful but old, poorly insulated with a heating system that cost a fortune to run. I'd maintained it because I could afford it. They couldn't. The young architects, Michael, Sarah, and David, had full access to common areas per their leases. Kitchen, living room, the garden. Helena hated it. She'd call, voice shaking with rage. They're here all the time, making coffee at midnight, having meetings in the living room. It's their home too, I'd reply calmly. Their lease guarantees equal access. You signed the agreement. We didn't know it would be like this. Did you read the contract before signing? Silence. Then she'd hang up. James tried intimidation, left voicemails, voice thick with threats. You think you're smart, but you're playing a dangerous game. I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of father you are. I saved every message, forwarded them to William, evidence of harassment. Dorothy scoured the foundation documents, looking for loopholes. Found nothing. William had been thorough. She tried anyway. Filed a complaint about the foundation's tax-exempt status. The investigation took 2 weeks. Concluded we were in full compliance. She tried to get the historic designation revoked. The commission rejected her petition unanimously. Each failure cost them money they didn't have. The creditors weren't patient. James's gambling debts, $180,000, came due. Collectors started calling, then visiting. Helena called me, hysterical. They're threatening us. Then James should pay, or declare bankruptcy. Those are his options. You could help us? I could, but I won't. Why? What did we ever do to deserve this? The question was absurd. You want a list, Helena? Should I start with 10 years of silence, the hospital visit that never happened, or skip to the part where you scouted my house with a realtor 3 weeks before pretending to need help? She hung up. The young architects told me things too. Helena and James fought constantly, screaming matches echoing through the halls. David mentioned wearing headphones at night to block out noise. Should we be concerned? He asked during a foundation meeting. Document it. Dates, times, severity. If it continues, we may need to issue a warning. Michael added, they're 3 weeks late on the electric bill. The foundation covers property tax and insurance, but utilities are tenant responsibility. Send a reminder notice. If they're 30 days late, we escalate. Sarah looked uncomfortable. I know she's your daughter, Franklin. This must be difficult. She stopped being my daughter 10 years ago, I said quietly. This is just business now. But it wasn't just business. Not entirely. Late at night, alone in my condo, I'd wonder if I'd gone too far. But then I'd remember Helena's face that first day, looking at my house like it was already hers, the casual cruelty in her voice. No, this was justice. In late September, James tried blackmail, threatened to report old code violations unless I renegotiated their lease. William laughed. Statute of limitations is 10 years. This is worthless. James's next move was desperate. He contacted a news station claiming I was exploiting my daughter through predatory lease terms. A reporter called me. Would you like to comment? I'd be happy to, I said. I created a charitable foundation to support young architects. My daughter applied to rent the property. We offered below market rates, $4,500 monthly for a property worth $3.2 million. They signed voluntarily. Which part is predatory? Your daughter claims you tricked them. Did they read the contract before signing? Silence. I'd need to verify that. The story never aired. By October, Helena stopped calling to argue. She called to beg. Dad, please, we can't keep doing this. Can't you just let us out of the lease? The lease has a termination clause, 90 days notice and $13,500 penalty. We don't have that. Then honor the lease terms until you do. I hate you, she whispered. I know, I said. But you hated me long before this. At least now you have a reason. 2 weeks later, William called. They've filed for bankruptcy. Chapter 7. Complete liquidation. I felt something twist in my chest. Not triumph. Something more complicated. What does that mean for the lease? They can't continue paying. They'll vacate. The bankruptcy eliminates the penalty. So they walk away clean. Financially, yes, but their credit is destroyed. I sat with that, watching city lights through my window. Franklin? William's voice was gentle. You won. Did I? You protected your home? Created something good? The foundation is helping 3 talented people. That's a victory. Maybe, but it felt hollow. I'd wanted Helena to understand consequences, to feel the helplessness I'd felt. She'd learned, but the price was higher than I'd expected. For both of us. The last Saturday in October, they moved out. I drove to the house in the morning. I hadn't been back since handing over the keys 3 months ago. The young architects had texted me. Helena and James were loading a truck. Did I want to be there? I did. I parked across the street and watched them carry boxes. Helena looked thin, exhausted. James moved with the defeated slouch of a man who'd lost everything. Dorothy was there too, directing the movers with grim efficiency. I waited until the truck was almost loaded. Then I got out of my car and walked across the street. Helena saw me first. Her face crumpled. Come to gloat? James said. His voice was hoarse, empty of its usual aggression. No, I said. I came to say goodbye. Helena laughed, but it was broken, edged with hysteria. Goodbye? After everything you've done to us? After everything I've done? I kept my voice level. Let's be clear about what happened here. You disappeared from my life for 10 years. You ignored every letter, every call. You didn't come when I was in the hospital. You came back only when you needed money. You scouted my house with a realtor before ever knocking on my door. You planned to take everything I had left. We were desperate, Helena's voice cracked. James's business failed. We lost everything. We needed help. You needed money, I corrected. Not help. Not family. Money. And you were willing to take it by manipulation and lies. She was crying now. Real tears, finally. Not the calculated performance from 3 months ago. How could you do this? I'm your daughter. I looked at her for a long moment, at this stranger who'd once been my little girl. You know what the worst part is? Not that you disappeared for 10 years. Not that you didn't visit when I was sick. The worst part is that when you finally came back, you didn't ask how I was. You didn't ask if I was happy, if I was lonely, if I needed anything. You walked into my home and saw dollar signs. That's when I knew you weren't my daughter anymore. You were just someone who wanted something I had. James stepped forward, but there was no threat in it, just exhaustion. So this was revenge? Destroying our lives to teach us a lesson? No, I said quietly. This was consequence. You wanted to treat my home as an asset to be exploited. I treated it as an asset to be protected. The foundation, the leases, the historic designation. All of it was legal. All of it was fair. You had every opportunity to walk away. You chose to stay and fight. You lost. Dorothy, who'd been silent until now, spoke up. What about the bankruptcy penalty? The $13,000? The bankruptcy eliminates it, I said. You don't owe anything. Helena's face showed confusion. Why? Why would you let that go? Because despite everything, I'm not cruel. I looked at Helena. I just stopped being convenient. There was a long silence. The movers were watching, uncomfortable witnesses to a family falling apart. Finally, Helena whispered, What happens to the house now? The foundation will continue to use it as it was intended. 3 young architects will live and work here, developing their skills. Eventually, we'll expand the program. More studios, more residents. The Margaret Preston Memorial Foundation will help talented people who need support. Mom, Helena's voice broke. You named it after Mom. She always believed in supporting young talent, in giving people chances. I paused. She would have been disappointed in what you've become, but she would have loved what the foundation is doing. Helena's tears fell faster. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know, I said, and I meant it. I could see it in her face. Genuine remorse, finally breaking through the entitlement and greed. But some things, once broken, can't be repaired. But sorry doesn't change what you did. It doesn't erase 10 years of silence. It doesn't rebuild trust that was destroyed. James pulled at Helena's arm. Come on, we need to finish loading. Wait, Helena said. She looked at me, desperation in her eyes. Is there any way, could we ever? No, I said gently. We can't. But I'm your daughter. You were my daughter. Now you're just someone I used to know. She flinched like I'd struck her. Dorothy guided Helena toward the truck. As they walked away, Helena turned back one more time. I really am sorry, Dad. I believe you, I said, but some lessons come too late. I watched them drive away, watched the moving truck turn the corner and disappear. Then I walked up to my house, the foundation's house, and went inside. The 3 young architects were in the kitchen making lunch. They looked up as I entered. Everything okay? Michael asked. Yes, I said. Everything's fine. Sarah gestured to the stove. We're making pasta. Want some? I smiled. I'd like that. We ate together, talking about their projects, their challenges, their dreams. The house was full of life again, not the life I'd imagined when I designed it 30 years ago, not the family legacy I'd hoped to create, but something good, nonetheless. Later, standing in the garden Margaret had planted, I thought about Helena's final words, the apology, the regret. Was I cruel for not accepting it, for not offering forgiveness? Maybe. But forgiveness requires trust, and trust requires honesty. Helena had shown me who she really was. She'd proven that her love was conditional, transactional, easily discarded when inconvenient. I'd simply stopped pretending otherwise. The sun was setting over the bay, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Inside, I could hear the young architects laughing about something. Michael was playing music. Sarah was showing David her latest designs. The house was alive, filled with purpose, with possibility, and I was free. Free from the hope that had kept me waiting for a daughter who would never return. Free from the pain of loving someone who saw me as nothing more than a means to an end. Helena had taught me a hard lesson. Love can't be bought with money, but it can be lost through greed. And once lost, it can never truly be reclaimed. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.